Trias. 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 Tris? No. Trias. Trias. Smarter men than me can figure out the name of this game. My favorite thing about this game might be the two dinosaurs on the front. Childish, I know, but I do get a laugh at it every time. Trias is going to be a tile laying game. A tile drifting game, which really comes down to area control with these little dinosaur meeples, if you will. You're going to be getting control of areas and then moving, which I'll show you in the flow of the game, the tiles around to create new continents out of Pangea, and hopefully scoring some points. The tracker goes up to 30. I think our top score is 28, 27, so not a lot of points, which is fine. But the game. Outdated? Is that a fair word for this game? This is a Rio Grande game when they were bringing a lot of games over. The components are blah. I mean, the little meeples are cool, but they're very, very small. Can you even see them there? I don't think so. This is definitely a Lego stepping hazard around the house if these get lost, because they're not big. The tiles don't have anything on the back, and the backs of the cards, which we'll get in the components, are just black and white. The game looks dated. The game looks aged. You kind of want to judge a game based on when it came out, I suppose, and how does Trias compare up. It's a neat game. It's a neat area control game. It's a neat thing how the board kind of changes. It kind of sets up. Every time you play, it should come out a little bit differently. Even though there's only 3 types of tiles, which is very limiting in my mind. But it keeps it simple. It keeps it easy. The drift system, every time you play, the world's going to look different when you're done. You can get screwed in this game. Now, we had some new players who ended up having a 3-tile continent with all of the dinosaurs. They were done. They were toast for the game. So, if you're going to play with new people, I would almost tell them, look, you need to spread out a little bit. Here's some things you need to watch out for. Don't get stuck on a 2-tile continent all by yourself, because you're going to have to reconnect, and that's going to lose you some time. It took one of our players a while to figure out, maybe they never figured out, that once they were out there by themselves, getting more dinosaurs wasn't going to help you score. The scoring's a little wonky, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you'll make it through it. I would recommend showing around, moving the tiles, showing people how they score, then setting back up and playing. It can be a little daunting. Otherwise, it's a fine area control game. It's on the light to medium weight. The continental drift of the tiles is a little confusing at first. A little bit of how does it move? It's the rules state it's furthest from the South Pole. What exactly is that? Is this furthest? Is that furthest? We just kind of went with it. So your mileage may vary. I think there are better area control games on the market. Now, are there better dinosaur games on the market? If you're into the theme, I still... Triassic Terror is on my list of games to play. There may be some 80s nostalgic kid games that you remember. It might be the best dinosaur game on the market. If you're into the theme, if you like area control, this might be it for you. So, look at those kind of factors. It's odd that the book and the pictures make a point to say there's 2 different dinosaurs. I don't know why. I can't figure out any gameplay reason why there are 2 different dinosaurs. To be frank, all the dinosaurs are the same, so it doesn't really matter. I think it's just why. Otherwise, date the game, try before you buy, see if you like it. If you're a real big fan of dinosaurs, this may be it for you, but these just as well could have been cavemen or plants or anything else. The fact that they're dinosaurs is totally irrelevant. This is an abstract game with a hidden little theme and some really cool meeples. So that is Trias. I'm going to Purge. I would recommend you try before you buy. This is going to be the main components of the board, these tiles. You're going to have plains, you're going to have forest, and you're going to have mountains that look like the moon. They're going to be unfinished on the back. They're thick enough, I suppose. You won't have any problems with them. I didn't have any fraying or tearing at all. You're going to have these dino meeples.
They're very, very tiny, 17 in each color. You have 5 different colors. We got purple, we got blue, we got red, and you have yellow and black. I have mine all bagged up. They're nice, they're tiny, they're going to do the job. They don't feel great in your hand, but they are neat that they're in the shape of a dinosaur. That's great. You're going to have 2 sets of cards, one with a 1 back and one with a 2 back. You're going to see that these are kind of grayscale, maybe gray and white. Kind of looks like a gecko, I guess. Serve the purpose. They're pretty thin. They don't really bend too badly, but they don't feel great in your hand. They're cheap. Each one of these is going to match, one of the little areas on the board. And you're going to have a scoring track, which is going to wind up and around and down. Some people aren't going to like that. That's going to be the scoring track. And that's pretty good cardboard. That might be the nicest thing made of the game. And this little scores look like dinosaur prints, if you will. Looks like they might have 6 toes to them. Maybe dinosaurs had 6 toes. I'm not sure. That's going to be the components in the box. Otherwise, the box itself is going to be a little bit cheap. Not a lot of artwork except on the front. The rulebook makes a note that there's 2 different types of dinosaurs. I don't know why. This has no effect. You have the humping dinosaurs there. It has no effects whatsoever on the gameplay or why. So I'm not really sure what that's about. And those are the components. They're okay. This isn't a highly glossed, produced game. It's an old school Rio Grande game. These are probably the nicest, or maybe that scoreboard's the best quality, but these are the fun part of the game, these meeples.
The rules are printed in black and white / gray. You have a list of the components, but they're gray and white, so there's only a couple of different tiles. It's not hard to figure out what they are. The rules, lots of text here, people. Lots of text, very few pictures. You do get some pictures. They're a little bit helpful, but they're not in color, so they can be confusing. They end up going to, if you look on this page, if you can even see it, they end up going to like a lettering system because without color, you can't make heads or tails of it. The scoring's wonky. Make sure you understand the scoring. Make sure you understand a continental drift. I highly recommend setting this game up, playing a solo, figuring it out before you sit down to play, because you're going to need to know how this game scores, and you're going to need to know how to drift those tiles before you play. For some of you, might be looking at me like, duh, this is no big deal. I'm not the heaviest of gamers. I'm not the gamer. Even though I'm responsible for reading the rules a lot of times, I am probably not the guy you want reading the rules. So it was just a little confusing for me. Your mileage may vary. The scoring, there's plenty of examples in here. Once again, special rules for 3 and 2 players, and they tell you about 2 different types of dinosaurs. It has no bearing on the game, but they are on the cover of the box. Those are the rules. Fine. I mean, I made it through the scoring, and I made it through the continental drift. You'll do the same. As for the flow of the game, the board's going to be set up in a sphere like this. You set it up, and you take the water out to create 2 spaces. Any space that doesn't have a tile is going to be considered water. You will use all of the tiles except for 2 of them that will come out at the beginning of the game. Now, the water tiles were put in the first 18 tiles that are zipped around, and then you had another row that went all the way around. You also have the South Pole tile in the center, which can never be drifted. That can never drift, and that's going to be important in the game. So the way the game is going to play, each player is going to have 1 card in their hand. They can either play this card, or they can take the top card of the deck, and that's going to be a semi-important decision. So let's say you played this, and you're going to drift it. It's going to be a little bit nebulous kind of understanding of this, but basically you can move any tile you want as long as it touches the open sea around it, and as long as it ends up a little bit further from the South Pole. So this leaves this open. On your turn now, you can do 1 of 4 things. And you're always going to have 4 action points that you can use. If you look right here as a handy-dandy cheat sheet, you can drift another tile. This card would be discarded that we use. And it doesn't have to be used with a card. So you can drift anything that you would want. And let's say you wanted to drift this. That would be 3 action points. I should note that everybody's going to start out with 2 dinosaurs on the board. You'll do that in turn order. Another thing you can do on your turn is you can move
from an adjacent spot to an adjacent spot. You can reproduce by adding another one to the board. That's an action point. Or by any chance, if you had somebody in the water, you can move up to 3 of these out of the water. So 4 action things. For 3 action points, you can move one. For 1 action point, you can move somebody. Another action point, you can reproduce. You just need at least 1 herd there. Or for 1 action point, you can move up to 3 dinosaurs out of the water. And those are going to be your action points. At the end of this turn, if there's anybody in the water, you will lose them, come off the board. And then you will draw another card. That's going to be a turn. And then the next player would go. Now, the board's all kind of crazy. I just started throwing people willy-nilly on the board. But let's say blue is next. He can add a person. He can move, add one, etc. Now, he would have had to drift. So let's say, for example, you had a person here. And you wanted to drift this. So you played your orange card, your yellow card, and you drifted out here. Now I've created a new continent. If you have the most dinosaurs on this continent, you will score 2 points. If you, say this is moved, you had second place, you would get 1 point. That's how the game goes. So you're trying to create these new continents. You never score a continent attached to the South Pole. Otherwise, you're moving these, draw a card or play a card, and you would move one of these, and we're going to be forming new continents. Open sea. So if we had people here, and you drew a jungle, you could move this further from the South Pole, and now you would have a new continent. Blue would score 2, and red would score 1. A few extra rules that will be put in place, which is the mountains can never have more than 2 dinosaurs, the forest can have no more than 3, and the plains can have no more than 3 dinosaurs on it. You'll see things reconnecting. You can reconnect, and that won't score any points. You only score a new point if it's a new continent not attached to the South Pole. At the end of the game, you will score points for having dinosaurs on different islands. So let me use this one right here as an example. Whoever has the most will score 1 point per tile. 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to have the dinosaur on the tile, just the most in the little continent that you've created. Whoever's in second will get a half a point per tile. So in this case, blue would get 4 points and red would get 2. Here, blue would get 2 points and red would get 1. Half and half is 1. And the game continues until this meteor card is going to be drawn. And this meteor card is going to be shuffled into pile 2. So you don't know exactly when it's going to come up. I've got it on top just to illustrate, but it could just as well have been at the bottom or somewhere in the middle. So you don't know exactly when it's going to end, but you do know it will be in deck 2. And once that triggers, everybody's going to have 2 action points to use. No more shifts will be allowed. Because remember, you need 3 action points to shift, and you only have 2 left the last round. And you add up all the points, and whoever has the most points will win the game. So let me reiterate what you would do on your turn. You will play either a card from your hand, or you can draw the face-up card. You will shift one, but it has to be attached to the open sea, and it has to move further away from the South Pole. Now, if there's a dinosaur on it, he would just fall into the ocean. If you're moving over here to where he was at, then you would just put him back on the land. Then you would have 4 action points, which you could use to drift another one out if you wanted to. That would cost you 3 action points. Or you can move a herd, reproduce a herd, or take up to 3 out of the swimming area so they don't die at the end of the turn. Then anybody in the water would die, come off the board, and then you would draw a new card to replenish. Very easy to do. It's a very simple game. It's very abstract. There is not a lot going on, although it's one of those brain burner games. And that's how you play Trias.
Who should buy this game? Who is this game for? Obviously, fans of dinosaurs. If you get all hot and musky over this dinosaur meeple, this game is for you. If you want perhaps arguably the best dinosaur game on the market, this is likely it. But you're going to have to like area control. probably take that as my worst. Maybe roll and move if you want to get archaic about it. Area control is a genre that I want to love, but rarely do. It's okay. It's a lot of put a cube here, take a cube off because somebody did something to me, and that's what happens a lot. Or you just lock down an area and nobody else has a chance, so they go other places and that area becomes locked down. I don't know. This game is neat how it drifts. You can drift and then reconnect and take over an area. We had very little of that because it took us a little while to figure it out. Every time I played with somebody new, there was some getting used to. This is not for new gamers. This is not for non-gamers, although the rules are pretty simple. You're going to play this maybe twice. Maybe some of us gamers, or higher-end gamers than me, will figure out it fairly quickly, but some of the people I play with struggled a little bit, and they're smart, intelligent people. There's, it was just tricky, and understanding how the scoring comes along for such a simple game. And I'm not trying to pretend like this is Kanban. I'm not pretending like this is Panamax or the Galleries. This is not the heaviest of games, but in these abstract games, I find that the scoring is wonky sometimes. It doesn't make sense. So, at the end of the game, you score for, if you have the majority of dinosaurs, every tile, the second player gets, whoever's second place and most gets half the points rounded up. Sounds simple. It's just hard when you're drifting to see the points sometimes. And then the scoring during the game is different than the end game scoring. And it all works. It's just abstract. And sometimes the abstract games, it doesn't make sense why this happens per the theme. I think sometimes Kanban was great at that, infusing the theme into the scoring in such a deep game. Trias, it just seemed like you were scoring points for the sake of scoring points because this was the system that was set up, which can be confusing to non-gamers because you're just memorizing rules. You're not memorizing anything that interlocks into the theme. I think that makes it a little more difficult to grasp. Even so, with a good teacher and some patience, you could teach this to a non-gamer or maybe a light gamer. It's not going to be prohibited from learning. It's not a deep game. There's not a lot of rules. On your turn, you drift, and you have 4 possible actions. It's not difficult. Those are all placed right in front of you with the player aid. So that's fairly easy. Light to medium, but it's got some bite to it that is going to interest some people. Try before you buy. I'm going to Purge, but if you're into area control and you like dinosaurs, this might be the mix for you. And you may want to go ahead and try this before you buy it. This game's been out for a while, so you may have heard of it, may not. Just be prepared for lackluster components. Be prepared for... They're not cheap. They're just not what we're used to nowadays with the Kickstarter revolution. And be prepared for an area control game where you may not have as much control. There's a little bit of screwage in there, and you have to screw your neighbor in this game. You're going to have to if you're going to win this game. Trias, Purge for me. It may be a keeper for you, though.